Like Anup said, this is a panel now 2 days in the making, so hopefully we have something of value that you can take away from this. It is, I mean, like Anup mentioned, all of us here are beneficiaries of the Kerala Fund of Funds scheme. Some who've been part of the Kerala family for longer, and then a few of us who are newer additions to the family. Yeah, so hopefully over the next 33 minutes or so, we can have a conversation about deep tech. That's what we are all here for. So why don't we start off with a round of introductions, and then we can go into specific questions. One small tweak to the structure of the panel. Manoj has agreed to co-moderate the panel with me. So we will both of us will, answer/ask questions. So, Manoj, good? Good to
Yeah,
go?
yeah, of course, yeah.
Perfect. Anilji, please, quick introduction from you and then.
Thanks, Manu. Good evening, all. We had been waiting for since yesterday morning and glad that we have opportunity to speak. So I'm Anil Joshi, part of Unicorn India Ventures. Currently, we are in our third fund, which is a 1,200 crore fund. And this fund is focused deep tech. Between three funds, we have built a portfolio of 50 companies, of which 15 are from Kerala. We have fairly decent number of deep tech company from Kerala, and my estimate says we have deployed over 125 crore plus till date Kerala, and I think maybe next year I might double it up when we meet, next year same time. Thank you.
So hi everyone, my name is Manish Maheshwari. I'm general partner at BATVC, which is a New York headquartered early stage fund. We invest in AI first companies in fintech and enterprise SaaS. And our first fund is fully deployed. We made 15 investments. And now we are on to our second fund. And looking forward to finding both limited partners from Kerala and also looking at great companies to invest in from Kerala. Thank you.
How large is your fund, Manish?
The first fund was rather small, about 10 million, and the second fund now we are raising is 100 million. That's the second size of the second fund.
Hi, everyone. Manoj Agarwal from C Fund. We are a partner fund, like Manu said, of Kerala. And we've been investing actively in Kerala now for last few years. We have 11 portfolio companies here. Most of them tech, and the current fund, we are more focused on deep tech. We've done about 11 investments from the current fund. Yeah, happy to be here, finally on stage.
Good evening, all of you. Thanks, Manu, for the time. I'm Rajesh Krishnamurthy. I'm a senior venture partner with Colossa Ventures. I'm a Kochi boy, born and brought up in Cochin. I've been in Mumbai for the longest time. Colossa Ventures is focused on the women economy and the climate-related economy that can make some change to the world we live in. We focus on investments in women-owned and women-led businesses. So I would want to emphasize it's women-owned and women-led. It's just not for the sake of it. Or if there are business models that create products and services focused on women. For example, maybe early detection of breast cancer and things like that, which is specific to women. That's an area that we look at. And the only place where we leave aside all these gender-based lenses is where we focus on climate tech. So any entrepreneur in climate tech is always welcome. We are a very nascent fund. I must say I'm sitting with the giants in our industry. But I'm very happy to share with you that as much as you all would look at each other and say peer learning is something that you would really love to have and you would thrive on it, I must say that there could be a perception that a lot of competitors are sitting in front of you, but the reality is that the amount of encouragement that we give each other, the amount of peer learning that we give each other, and the respect that we have for each other I think that stands apart in this industry. At least with the gentleman on stage, I can be sure of that. That's been my personal experience. And thank you for all of that, all of you. Thanks.
Super. And yeah, rounding up the team on stage, Manu, myself, we run a fund called Blue Hill. We're investing in frontier tech ideas in manufacturing, defense, space, semiconductors, material science. We're a 400 crore fund. And I think just doing some basic, napkin math, I think we're about 3,000 crores of funds on the table. So should be an interesting conversation over the next 28 minutes. So let's start off with, just what does deep tech mean to all of us, right? Why is it relevant in the context of India today? Why do you think there is today so much of noise, interest, capital that is flowing into what was considered hard things to do, what was considered a very long gestation area to be involved in? So what does it mean to each one of you? Anilji, if we can start with you.
So, Manu, sir, you'd always start tough questions with me. So, so in, so in my view, so we all know about tech, but there are component of software which can be classified on deep tech, and then the combination of hardware and software can be classified. It's more about IP-led to make things simpler. The kind of companies we have invested are in space, defense, semiconductor, cyber security are some of the examples we classified toward deep tech. Anything which on pure software, SaaS, AI application, we don't consider them to be on deep tech side.
So for us, we look for where technology is a mode, right? I mean, it should be like grounded in deep technology, not something which is superficial or where technology is an add-on. Like many times you come across a company that's basically an operating company, but technology is used to make the operations efficient. That would not qualify for us. What would qualify is that, do they have a technological moat, something that requires a lot of understanding about different layers of technology. Ideally, they should have an IP. Sometimes not having an IP is also fine, but I think those are the conditions that we look at when we look at deep tech.
So for us, we look at deep tech from two lenses. One is the India lens, deep tech from a very India lens, and deep tech from a global lens. So we see companies in both, lenses in India, fewer building from a global lens in India, and more from the sectors are all we have talked about: semiconductor, mobility, climate, quantum, and so many. So, for example, in mobility, we have invested in a company which probably has players in the global context, but from an India lens, they are very unique. So that there comes the indigenization play, import replacement and stuff like that. And there are people and they are IP driven. I mean, there is an element of, indigenous IP also, which plays out. So yeah, I mean, we look at both lenses.
Great. I think much of the definitions have come out, but if I were to just try and summarize a few of those that I've learned, I think deep tech is a lot to do with the orientation it has towards solving a problem. And that problem orientation has to be there. That's a very, I would say, a non-negotiable when you look at deep tech. The other aspect to it is that any deep tech has to definitely focus on science. There has to be a science behind it. It can't be, like yesterday you saw Suresh presenting a lot of creative ideas using computer graphics and animation. Suresh comes from a right brain thinking point of view and is encouraging you to look at, all those aspects. But when we come to deep tech, we have to heavily look at the left brain. So we are focused and we are forced to question the entrepreneurs, how much of that left brain is being used, and is there a scientific evidence to it? And last but not the least, as he just took that word, moat, we all know, I mean, we are all part of the Travancore, the historical Travancore kingdom, right? A lot of our palaces were preserved. Even the biggest temple here, the Padmanabha Swami temple, is preserved because it's got a moat. It's not easy for people to infiltrate. It's not easy for enemies to attack and take anything from the temple. So a deep tech has to have that moat, and that kind of defines, these three things define what deep tech is to us.
Super. For me, as I think about why deep tech is important, right? I think historically, I think India has done fantastic research. We've done good R&D. There just hasn't been the right outlet for it to get commercialized. The R&D has more been in the academic settings, hasn't found a way into, direct commercialization. And we also have great engineers who've been part of some of these larger organizations, let's say in semiconductors, whether it's Intel or Qualcomm, or in, let's say, a Rolls-Royce or a GE. We've had good engineers working at these places. IISc Bangalore, Liquid Propulsion Center in Trivandrum, all the different IITs. We have great R&D that happens. And today it's becoming important that a lot of these technologies get commercialized in the context of it being sovereign tech. Right? We cannot continue to have dependencies considering, let's say, geopolitical risk, considering just the outflow of dollars, considering that we have good, frugal engineers who can build here and who can build for global use cases. And today, I think that's where the opportunity is, popping up. We had our, commerce minister talk about the importance of deep tech, I think, at the Startup Mahakumbh. I think they were led to a lot of, let's say, discussion around that topic. But broadly, over the last few years, we're seeing as the deep tech ecosystem has been gestating, right? We're noticing that, there are companies that are now failing between the prototype stage and then before they get to manufacturing, right? What do you think some of these companies need more, in terms of support, either from academia or from the corporates? What more can be done to support them such that they are able to transition from prototype to manufacturing? We'll leave it to one of you, to Manoj Bhai, if you want to. What more do we need to do for some of these deep tech companies to transition from being prototype to moving towards, full-scale manufacturing? What more can the ecosystem do?
I think prototyping itself is a challenge to start with, One of the key challenges is, like you mentioned, is from R&D. Is it working? Is from patent, R&D labs to commercialization, and prototype is a journey in between. Now, one thing missing in India still, though there's some effort made by IIT Madras and Indian Institute of Science, is prototyping itself, what I call a test bed, where you have enough equipment available, your test and measurement equipment, your, compute infra, not from an AI perspective, which government is trying to do something. I think that is one area which a lot of work has to happen. And once we move to prototype, the other thing is to have early users. That is one challenge again. Once a prototype is developed, to go on to a manufacturing journey, which is like pure commercialization, there has to be this journey of early users, which I think is missing. You need those early adopters who will then validate the product, corrections can be done. I think large-scale manufacturing requires more of capital, which certainly I think is improving day by day, which is, according to me, easier. The first two steps are more important. Once you have prototype, you have early users, you have validation, I think there will be enough money available to put in place large-scale manufacturing. We probably are not there in manufacturing tech yet, but then that is fine. We can't have everything. We can import that. I think that's what my take.
Super. Anilji, you want to weigh in?
So it's an interesting question, right? Look, India always has been known for recreating stuff where the contribution of IP has been very limited, right? So I just need to reproduce this, I'll do re-engineering and produce it, right? I think when you're talking about a true deep tech product where a lot of R&D goes in, and here challenge is not producing something, but the challenge is producing something where customer is willing to pay. I think that's where we are talking about commercialization. So I'll take a very simple example. Let's take case of semiconductor industry, right? In normal circumstances, from idea till different stage of like TRL 1 to 9, and to come out with first chip maybe somewhere around 8 years. Right now, 8 years is not a small period. You need to pay for salaries, you need to pay for research, you need to pay for all tests, right? I think in this 8 year, definitely the team will produce something, but I think it's very important that they keep check and balance and produce something which industry needs and not what I want to develop and produce. So it's very important that develop something, a prototype which probably will be a use case for consumer. I think that's where most of these deep tech companies miss, build something which industry need and not something which I want to produce. So that's what.
So I'll just add one more angle to the question, before I pass it on to both of you. Yesterday we were in that round table with the minister Balagopal sir and Sridhar Vembu, right? And Sridhar Vembu had this, let's say, for all the VCs sitting in the room, quote unquote, a controversial take, saying, hey, time, if there is a time limit, I'm not as interested, right? And while it would be great that we as funds have investors who might be willing to give us money for, let's say, 15 years. That's not the ground reality, right? And to your own point, which you just made, a semiconductor company needs 8 years of, before they get to some sort of commercialization. So is there also enough capital post a Series A in the ecosystem? And I'd love to hear back from Anilji and Manoj also in the process.
So I think till 2 years back, probably it was not there, right? But incidentally, government have taken, some very interesting steps which has encouraged a lot of founders to go ahead with their, research and development on this direction, minus dependence on, private capital. The schemes like DLI, DST coming, the RDI thing, which I think probably going to open, a lot of avenues for fundraising. But what has changed in last 2 years that with all these initiatives and with government support, which even leads to subsidy, right? I don't have to repay. I think a lot of private capital have now started. For example, we started 2023, and now we are almost 2 years. It's a pure. We have made almost 70% of investment in deep tech. It's not some small thing. And it needs a lot of gestation. So interestingly, now India is getting recognized to getting started for deep tech. In fact, I think all of us have some deep tech angle, right? 5 people sitting on table itself is a good news. But last 2 years, we've seen so much of change supporting this segment that it is very encouraging. So capital today is not an issue, but yes, it was an issue some time back.
Got it.
So while capital certainly has increased, but I think at the later stage, still there's a challenge unless you have in India still funds, even some of the bigger ones, they clearly ask for revenue roadmap. Do you see revenue in the next 12 months, 6 months, or you already have some revenue? And some of these companies do have a challenge of revenue, right? At that stage. So that I think continues to be a challenge, hopefully with multiple initiatives, of the government, RDI and growth, and the whole, you know, uh, push around deep tech and innovation probably will change that. But Manu, let me wear my moderator hat. I think you have not been allowing me to do that. So I think one thing which we many times miss in, we talk about compliance and regulations only from a fintech perspective or, regular compliance of a company. But I think deep tech products like this also have a lot of requirement of, fitting into regulatory umbrella compliance, and there is somewhere, I think there is something missing. Maybe I like take of some of you on that.
Start with one of you.
Rajesh, you
Manish.
come from the US background, so maybe, how does it play out in those markets and what is it required in Indian context to do that?
Let me just step back and think about broadly about research, right? I mean, so like if you think about the talent perspective, I think there is not a dearth of talent for research in India, and I think high quality research. In fact, some very good researchers in the US are of Indian origin, both on the technology side, also in terms of basic sciences, right? So the question then becomes, why are we not seeing the same level of delivery in India? And I think part of the problem I notice in India is that, are we really giving them exposure to industry and a customer problem, right? Many of the researchers also need to think from the perspective of what is the solution that who are we solving it for and who is the customer? Now, the research does have a problem that it requires a long-term thinking and it requires deeper funding. But the models that seem to work in the US is that if you are a deep tech company, even if you do not have revenue, are you innovating on the cutting edge, right? I mean, there is some way to show that the kind of work you are doing is at the cutting edge, and then it will lead to revenue at some time in future. But there is really a strong conviction that because you're at the cutting edge of the work that you're doing, and the users are loving it, like the love metrics is what they look at in that situation, not the revenue metric, right? And then if that happens, then the funding comes in, right? And of course, a high risk funding as well. So, the funds are usually bigger funds. They also take a very different capital structure route. And that's what happens, right? So that's to the point that was discussed earlier. Did you have another question, Manoj, or this was the one?
Yeah, regulation and compliance.
You want to go ahead? Go ahead. I don't have a view on that.
No, I think it's a very great question and a good point for all of us to make a note of, because two aspects came out in this question. One is the need to have what we call patient capital, right? And patient capital is as nice as it sounds. It's as rare as it is to find, because technically speaking, capital cannot be patient. Then it has to take a more socialistic approach. And there is where we'll have to bring in policy. And why am I saying this is because part of this can be taken up by the private capital, which is what we will represent. But a majority of this heavy lifting will have to be taken by the government. Let's just look at one deep tech that we are all using. Your UPI. Okay? The entire NPCI ecosystem is nothing but hardcore deep tech. And it is so much embedded into our lives today. You don't have to carry cash, right? From the auto rickshaw to your Uber trips, or to whatever you are using for mobility, to even buying a metro ticket, it is scan and pay. But all of these rails are running on deep tech, and that is the UPI. Now, you ask this question, which investor will put so much money to create a UPI for the entire country and hope and pray that the Reserve Bank will bless it, that the government of India will bless it, and etc., etc., etc. And if it doesn't happen, the policy just takes away all the capital, right? So that's one part. But what is encouraging from a policy compliance point of view is that, with the establishment of the ANRF, which is the Anusandhan National Research Foundation, yeah, wanted to get it right, and the RDIF, both these initiatives of the central government, they have made it an interesting point for the scientists to come in and collaborate with the industry. And the biggest policy shift which will ease compliance is that they are saying that now you can involve scientists and create your own sandboxes to test out your idea. So I think these are policy levers that we need to look for in any country, and that's going to help. These are the few things I thought.
Yeah, I'll also weigh in, Manoj bhai. So, I have a slightly differing opinion on what Rajesh just said. I think there is a surfeit of capital that is coming from the government today, right? I think the government has more than done its part in being involved, in being, state government, center. There is a lot of capital available, either, through the PLI, the DLI, IDEX, BIRAC, fund of funds, SIDBI, state fund of funds. There's a lot of money available. I think there is a gap in the corporates participating. There isn't money coming from private investors, right? Where is, India's LLM, right? Today, TCS's, CTS's, Wipro's bread and butter is going to be eaten by, all the, generative AI, right? It's going to, a lot of those tasks are going to go away very quickly, right? TCS alone, I think, paid 70,000 crores in dividend over, I think, 8 or 9 years now, right? A lot of that money should have been pumped back into the R&D ecosystem, right? Where is private money going into supporting, things in defense or, things in space, right? I think that thought process, I think there's a number that goes around quite a bit about how much of, private, overall top line or NSE top line actually goes into R&D. And I think we are like 1/15th of Israel and, 1/5 of the US. So there is a long way to go for, the private capital to catch up. And I think that would go a long way in, helping push forward the ecosystem.
No, I think good point. That's very important. Just any idea anybody has how many patents we file out of India in a year? Any of you have any idea? So I was just looking at the number. It's about 80,000 patents. And how many get commercialized? Probably not even 5%. And a lot of these patents are filed out of Indian Institute of Sciences and these kind of places. So I think one critical problem is the handoff from research to commercialization. Now, I think somewhere the startups are in between. A lot of deep tech startups don't necessarily come out of these Indian Institute of Science students. The research there and these startup ecosystem is still not well integrated. They may have these incubation facilities where some startup goes and creates IP, but the IP creation ecosystem and the startup ecosystem is not integrated. So maybe my next question is, Anil, how do you think we can improve this? The integration between the research institutions, what is being built by the professors and the students, PhD scholars, and the startup ecosystem? That is the first question. Then I have a second part, which is the next level.
So, Manoj, you're right that a lot of IPs are being generated, but very few are getting, I'll use word few, are getting commercialized. Interestingly, I have two examples in fund where one of a portfolio company partnered with a prof from IIT Bombay. And they acquired the IP which has been built solving cancer problem. Now the IP has been built but need to be commercialized. So they acquired it, improvised it, and now they are in process of clinical trials. So it will get ultimately commercialized. I think what is lacking, as I said in the beginning, that we always have been working with the perspective of doing business, right? So I'll reproduce and I'll sell, but I was, very hardly focusing on R&D. Neither I'm doing it nor I'm, acquiring which is available. Another very interesting example, as I'm part of also DLI, government has, very actively encouraged professors to avail this benefit to build IP and then commercialize, right? And I'm seeing one prof at, IIC Bangalore, who has not only acquired a semi IP from IIC, is further improvising and commercializing, which will have a great, defense application. Now, if you look at country, which solely, or rather, largely dependent on, import to safeguard our borders. Now, if we have this kind of technology, which is homegrown, we own IP, I think we are taking baby steps. In my personal view, by 2030, you will see different India in terms of deep tech.
Let me add to that. So my personal view is, if there's a lot more industry university collaboration, I think that's one way to solve it. And I've seen that that works a lot in the US, where I noticed that a lot of PhD students go and take a job in the private sector, and then they also have very strong academic roots as well. And that also gives them an understanding of, okay, how do I do research? But not only that, how do I then convert into something that customer will pay for? In fact, in our first fund, we invested in a company called Protopia, which is being run by or founded by two PhD students from University of San Diego, right? So those kind of interactions help. In India, it's very rare to find, industry employing PhD students or PhD students working in a company and then sort of, that interaction happening that seamlessly. I think the limited understanding I have of the Indian ecosystem is that most researchers here choose to stay on the research path, and they don't come on the side of like, how do I then, turn it into a product that people would love to use every day and then start, making it into a commercial entity. So that kind of knowledge sharing and that kind of orientation would help a lot. I think that's something I want to add.
So in the interest of time, I'll go to the second part of this. So like Anil rightly mentioned, we are seeing green shoots, but still probably a journey from lab to, say, the startup ecosystem. Now the next part is, how does startup ecosystem and industry collaborate? The larger industry, where we can see the real growth trajectory. Any thoughts on that, Manu and Rajesh?
So I think that's a bit of a gap, right? I think there are very early signs of that happening. A lot of that, I think, originally started around the IIT Madras ecosystem, research park and incubation cell and all of that, translating into a few other places, but I think needs a lot more work where there is recognition from larger corporates that meaningful value addition is happening in R&D from these use cases, and it is not just a low-cost place to get things done.
Yeah, I guess in the interest of time, I just say that I echo what he said, and adding just one more point, that in the context of this integration, at least what I've seen is that from a purely societal and community perspective, a lot of the researchers are always thought of as people who only can do research. They are not business people. And therefore, I always felt that when I met, and we've met multiple founders who've got, patents filed and ready to, give that to the world. But then where they lack is a sort of a co-founder who has the business acumen. So, Anil bhai, a lot of people say, Rajesh, you're not meant for this world. You still need to have a Marwadi as a partner. Because a South Indian will always think conservative. Marwadi or a Gujarati will say कि नहीं भाई यहाँ पे पैसा लगाना चाहिए. So I think it's that combination, of the technology play coming in from one brain and the other brain which can, kind of start synthesizing. So the co-founder, and that is where ecosystems and mentorship and accelerators will help, and that's my limited addition.
I think big boys are still just busy doing some pilots with startups, but they are still not very convinced. They are not ready to bet on the technologies. Though they find it very innovative, they still go to a large company overseas. Like, for example, you have built a very advanced, state-of-the-art EV component. Now you go to a Mahindra. They are probably, they will try this out, but they are still not ready to adopt, this technology at larger scale. And that is where the problem of scaling also comes in. I think that has to happen. Industry has to have more faith in what our ecosystem is building and support that. That's my take. I think we have.
Yeah, Manoj bhai, with your permission, I will take back the hat. We'll end with the Kerala, themed question at least, right? So I think KSUM has been one of the, let's say, one earliest player getting a lot of this right. And they've been doing a lot for startups in a very professional way from, I think, a very long time. I've been coming here, I think, from 17. Met quite a few people back there. I see Bhavil and Ratish and, a few of guys around. So how, what has Kerala done right? What more do you think Kerala can do? And finally, maybe talk about, either one of your portfolio companies that you think is exciting from this area, or, an area of, area that you are interested in investing in Kerala, right? So if we can just combine some of those questions, starting with the most senior person.
Manoj, I will allow you to take this, because then you will say, Anil, you will steal my example. So please go ahead. I'll be the last person.
No, I mean, like Manu, you said, we've been coming to Kerala since 2000, probably 16. Anil certainly has been coming longer than that I know. Now I've heard it many times.
Yeah, Kerala is my second home.
So I'm also now in a decadal journey. As part of the ecosystem, but yeah, otherwise have come earlier too. So I think we have seen interesting, improvement in what the ecosystem is providing in terms of the quality of startups, the innovation happening, the founders. One thing which we have seen very different from many other ecosystems, and there are pluses and minuses both. The resilience level of founders here is very, very high. Even if they don't have any money in the bank, we see them surviving not for months but years. They do it somehow. They sometimes bring their capital and they manage to run their business for like 2 lakh, 3 lakh a month. Any other founder in any other part would have closed down. Now, is it good or bad? It's a difficult question, but sometimes it is good because after a period you revive and you go on to build a larger journey. But sometimes, it is a waste of time. So I think it's something which has got mixed status, but I still feel, for me, I look at it as a positive. That founder continuing to sustain and build, because many times you need that support. We have seen the Make My Trips of the world after the .com bust. They went back to the garage and came up and became a listed company. So, and we have few in our portfolio who have revived through these phases. So I will leave my comment to that, Anil.
Thank you. It's always rare to get to speak ahead of seniors, and I have all the respect and regard for that. I'll probably share that from a personal perspective. I mentioned I'm a Kochi boy. I'm born and brought up in Cochin. But I just wanted to share with you that when I was growing up, drinking water was 100 meters away from my home. I had to walk 100 meters to fetch drinking water and come home, so that my mom could use that water to cook or to feed us or even for us to take bath. Today, you open the tap and there are multiple taps in the home where my parents live, same house. Now, is that progress? Absolutely yes. For me, that is progress. But for a lot of people who have grown with multiple water taps and multiple tube lights and lights at home, you switch this one on and LED, this one on and it's a different color, you could have that. You know, I think the biggest difference is, do you come from a perspective of scarcity or do you come from an upbringing of abundance? And the moment you, to his point, the moment you start thinking from a perspective of scarcity, then your mission will make sure that you get there. The moment you start thinking from a perspective of abundance, then you will say, you know, I need 20 lakhs to run my firm this month and I don't have 20 in my bank, 17 only I cannot manage. So I think that perspective, that grounding, that is necessary. And if that grounding is there, right, I'm telling you, why do I have to talk about somebody else? I'm telling you, if I can sit here confidently and talk to you today, when I have struggled for drinking water during my school days, you don't need to think of 200 different people. You will have something like this to share 5 years from today, 10 years from today. So I'm just telling you that never let go of a mission that you have in your mind. Focus wholeheartedly on what you want to do. And I'm sure you will get there. So that's the little thing on Kerala I can say. It's a brilliant place, a lot of people to support, and an environment that will thrive. Thank you.
So I'll just, to your question about what has KSM done really well, I think one thing I noticed they have done really well is to, build a community. I think this huddle community and the community of people, all of us here, bring them together in a common place and sort of getting this whole startup thing going and people connecting on this theme. I think it takes a lot of effort to build that, and I think they have been able to do very well over the years. And also the quality of the speakers, the kind of, the variety and diversity is also quite good. In fact, it adds to Rajesh's point about, for researchers, it's very important to also get paired with people who come with business orientation or a customer need orientation. I think communities like this are therefore very important because it is in these communities that you find people who are diverse, but yet connect on the point of a startup or ecosystem building, right? And so you can find your co-founders here and you can also build that support system that allows you to say, okay, I have depth in this, but I'm shallow in something else. So who can I pair up with? And that's very important. So, and the other thing I notice about Kerala is, of course, the cost of living is lower here compared to like Delhi, Mumbai, or Bangalore. So clearly there's advantage for startups to be located here because you can have your money can go a very long way. I think you can be very frugal, you can do a lot more experimentation. And in the world today, I mean, location is becoming less and less important. What is important is how do you reach out to people, how do you connect with them, and how do you build community? And communities are mostly virtual these days, right? I mean, you have to build virtual communities and have occasions to meet them in person like this. Once a quarter, once every so often, to put a name to a face, but other than that, all the community is virtual. So clearly, being located in Kerala has the advantage of course, good weather, great air, no traffic, and low cost, right? And who can beat that, right? I mean, so across India, I think that's a very deadly combination. So I'll end with that, and thank you for everything that KSM has done.
For me, that's the reason I wanted to speak. But I think from Kerala, startup mission perspective, been involved since startup village and seen the journey of KSM. But I'll not dwell more on that. But I don't know how many of you had an opportunity. Yesterday, we had a wonderful panel journey of Kerala startup mission. They had 4 CEOs, including Alok, who's currently leading, and 2 IAS officers who helped build this. So if not, do go, I'll encourage go and look at it. But I'm very proud to say that Kerala Startup Mission has been pioneer in many of the things first time, and then most of the country have followed them. We talk about one of the, I think Shiva Shankar sir was very vocal about the game-changing stuff by Kerala Startup Mission was Fund of Fund. And you all would be proud to know that even before central government rolled out fund of fund, Kerala Startup Mission has already, have deployed money. So in many sense, it's, way ahead of country. So they have to keep improvising their own benchmark. I'll stop here on this, but I'll share two quick example. I'll not take much time. What Kerala has a special, interestingly, a friend of mine was saying, what Bangalore is busy doing in, I think they're busy solving, delivering, stuff 10 minutes at a house. But what Kerala is doing, I'll take two example. One is not truly, and I'll explain. I don't know, most of you know what is Gen Robotic. And yesterday, Vimal shared its journey. They have a stall. One of the very interesting, true deep tech company which started almost 10 years back. We are talking about deep tech now, but Kerala, its own, place, produced a deep tech company 10 years back, successful company, a very proud moment for all of us. We happen to be the first investor in that. The second example I'll talk about Malus, right? We are talking about Kerala. I have one company where one founder is Tamilian and second is Malayali. And this company is Orbitade, would be the first company in world enabling refueling of satellite in space. Now, these are the proud moments. These are the true deep tech companies. I think there is no dearth of talent, Manu. There is no dearth of capital. The only thing we need to just spot them, support them, and allow them to fly. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think the hardest job has been for the organizers, I think, being on the side. Anup, one suggestion, I think, you've, in the Oscars, right? If people go on too long, no, they start playing music which goes louder and louder, no? I think you have to incorporate that into all our sessions. We are as guilty, I think.
So Anup, we were not ready to land. The Indigo flight took off very late after 2 days. So we saw the pilot was missing. So since the pilot has arrived, now we are ready to land. So thank you everyone. Anup, you are the pilot.